Welcome to Wildlife Outdoors with your host, Russell and Jose. If you have a passion for conservation of the outdoors, or you're enjoying a calming hike in the mountains, an exhilarating kayak trip on the river, feeling a fish on the end of your line, cooking on an open flame in a primitive campsite, or stalking big game, just waiting for the perfect shot, you're in the right place. So put on your boots and polarized sunglasses and come along for the ride.
What's going on, and welcome back to another Wildlife Outdoors podcast. My name is Jose. I'm just one half of the two-man group, and we're joined, of course, with none other than Russell Reynolds. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It might be a little bit shorter than the last couple episodes we've had, just because as life goes, we've been busy, and at least myself, I haven't had much time to spend any time outdoors. I know Russell has done a little bit this past weekend, and that's actually what we'll be diving into a little bit more in this episode. And with that being said, I think we should apologize for not having an episode out last week, as I mentioned before, as life goes and often does, things where we were a little busy, things came up, and we just couldn't find the time to meet, unfortunately. That's just some of the logistical things we kind of have to deal with whenever we live in two separate states. But, it is what it is. And we apologize, and we'll try and not let that happen too often. But, we're only human and we can only do what we can. But that being said, we thank you guys for hanging in there, and we hope you guys enjoy this episode. So, Russell, I know I have not had the chance to do any outdoorsy type stuff these last few weeks, but I know you went on a little adventure. You want to tell us a little bit about that and how things went?
Yeah. So I was talking to our buddy Hal, who was actually on the last episode, about going backpacking or going fishing or just hitting somewhere that I've never been, right? And we got to talking about different places in the state of Arkansas, and he brought up the Cossatot. And so I've been wanting to go places that I've never been, but like Southwest Arkansas was never like in my mind. I was always thinking somewhere like in the Ozarks or somewhere up north, like up towards Mississippi or Missouri, and just thinking, somewhere in that region. And then he's like, no, the Cossatot. And so I started looking it up, and dude, the Cossatot's freaking gorgeous. And it's like in the middle of nowhere. So it's at the southernmost part of the Ouachita Mountains, and it is just crystal clear water, mountains, perfect for hiking, camping, backpacking. And so I said, yeah, I'm in. So I talked to Ruth about it, and I was like, hey, I want to try my hand at backpacking. I've never been backpacking before. I love camping. I love being outside. So I was like, just try backpacking. Well, then we looked at the weather, and, a couple weeks out, we kind of agreed that we were going to go, but we started planning it about 2 weeks before. So once it got to about 10 days, we'd look at the 10-day forecast and see what the weather's going to be like. And the weather was looking like it was going to be great. Like during the day, it was going to be in the 60s, get down in the 40s at night. And, I love cooler weather. So I was like, hell yeah, that's perfect. So we start planning everything and started getting everything packed up, making sure we have everything. I just was super stoked about it. And I guess I didn't look more into what 41 degrees in the mountains actually feels like. So I was a little underprepared there. But yeah, so we were excited, and we went out this past weekend, and we ended up leaving Friday evening, and went out there and stayed at the Cossatot Falls campsite area at the Cossatot River State Park. And we got there around sunset, and went ahead and got the tent set up and gathered some wood, and we're going to have a fire. And all the wood that was around was like extremely moist. Like we hadn't gotten rain in central Arkansas. I don't know if they'd gotten rain over there, or if it's just so densely wooded that moisture doesn't leave. But all the wood that we found was just extremely moist and covered in moss. And I was just like, well, it's going to be fun trying to get a fire started. So, I tried to I have a flint and steel fire starter. And I was like, well, let me, try to see what I can do to see if I can get this fire started. And so I found some cedar, and I know that, there's like cedar and pine out there. I'm pretty sure it was cedar that I grabbed though. And right where the branch comes out of the trunk, there's like that knot. And I know that there's concentrations of oil in there. So I was like, well, maybe I could use that to help ignite the fire. Started a little kindling pile in like a log cabin style, put some kindling in there and was trying to start it. And it just couldn't really get it lit. And I was like, damn. So then I had some receipts in the truck, some old receipts. I was like, screw it. We'll rip those up and use those for kindling, and got a little bit of a fire going in terms of the smaller kindling, but I could never get any larger pieces of wood to ignite. So first night got down to 40, it was like 41, 42 degrees, didn't have a campfire. Our sleeping mats got little pinholes in them. So about halfway through the night, we're just laying on the rocks, extremely uncomfortable. So the first night was just like, oh, okay, we got all the bad out of the way. Like, it's only up from here. So we're great. So we're going to get up in the morning, and the trail itself is 12.5 miles. And so the names of the areas, it's Brushy Creek Trailhead. And then it's about 5 miles down to an area called Ed Banks. And then it's about 3 miles from Ed Banks to Cossatot Falls, which is where we stayed the first night. And then it's another, I think, mile from Cossatot Falls to the Sandbar campsite. And there's also like a group campsite there. And then I think it's another 5 or 6 miles to the visitor center. And that makes up the 12.5 mile stretch. And they say allot yourself 20 hours to do this hike. And so we're thinking, okay, we'll start at, park the truck at Brushy, hike down to Cossatot, and then, the next day hike back up and end up at the truck. And so we're going to do, half of it. Because if we parked at Brushy, then hiked to Cossatot, camped, and then hiked to the visitor center, like, we don't have a way to get 12 miles back up to the truck. So figured we'd just do half of it. And so the next morning we got up, right when the sun woke up, and went and walked around the Cossatot Falls area, looked at the shoals, and dude, the water was just, crystal clear. The pools were like this turquoise blue color. The water was flowing just right. Like, the ripple was perfect for fishing. And Ruth doesn't really like fishing, and we knew we had quite the hike ahead of us. And so we're like, so I didn't get to fish it. So we went out there and took a couple pictures, just kind of felt, what the water was like, and then packed up and wanted to go visit the visitor center, ask some questions before we got started, and then get started on the hike. And so we get to the visitor. Well, we're on our way to the visitor center, and I was like, you know what? This would be a cool area because there's a lot of hardwoods and a lot of pine covering like the canopy over the road. And I was like, this would be cool to like fly the drone behind the truck driving there and stuff, because I was trying to film a YouTube video also. And so I was like, oh, that'd be a cool shot. And so I was like, Ruth, you want to drive and I'll try to fly the drone? And keep in mind, I'm not the most experienced in drones. I'm actually not experienced at all in drones. And so I bought this cheap drone, and I'm like trying to fly it behind the truck, and I hit a limb. And so the drone, starts flopping around and falls off in the woods. And I'm like, damn. So she pulls over, and I get out, and I still have my phone and the drone remote, and I'm walking down the road, and I see this truck come over the hill and around the corner. And he's like, you lose your drone? And I'm like, yes, sir. And it was a state park, like patrol guy, state park ranger. And I was like, yeah. He said, oh, he's like, just so you know, you're not supposed to fly drones on state park property. He's like, I'm not worried about you. Like, I'm not going to write you up or nothing. He said, it's just one of those things where, like, if it's allowed, we're going to have 20 of them in there, at times bothering people. He said, we just don't really like them. And you're really not supposed to be flying them on state park property. I said, okay. I said, awesome. I appreciate it. And so I'm walking, and he's just driving next to me, and we're just chit-chatting a little bit. I told him a little bit about the podcast. He asked what we were there for, what we were doing, where we'd been. And he actually pointed out the drone. He's like, oh, there's your drone. I was like, oh, sweet. And then we stood there talking for like 15 minutes. And so Ruth like gets out of the truck, and she's looking back, because we're probably maybe 100 yards away from where she was at the truck. And she's like looking like, is everything okay? She didn't really want to walk up, but I guess she could just tell by the way that I was standing to communicate with a guy that I wasn't like in trouble. And so she just kind of got back in the truck and waited. And then I start walking up, and she gets out, and she's like, what's wrong? And I was like, got a ticket. And she's like, for what? I said, flying the drone on state park property. She's like, really? I said, yeah. I said, apparently you're not supposed to do that. And she's like, oh man. I was like, no, I'm just joking. I said, he could have, but he didn't give me the ticket. But obviously he's experienced in the area. And he said that first 5 miles from Brushy, the Brush Creek Trailhead to Ed Banks is 5 miles. It's pretty hilly. Like the first mile is like straight up. And then you don't even get to any scenic overlooks. You don't really get much of a view. Like, you're just in the woods, and you rise at an elevation, but you don't get to see anything. He said, so if you're doing like a 1-day trip, he would recommend, going from campsite to campsite and back, in 1 day. And that way you get to see it. And, on the second trip back, you can, if you have time, maybe stop and, go to the river or anything. Because the trail isn't directly next to the river. You can see the river and hear the river most of the way, but it's pretty steep to get down to it. And there's certain points where you can get down to it, but not very many of them. So he recommended doing that. And so we went and talked to the people at the nature center, and she said, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. That way you're not away from your vehicle. God forbid something happens, stuff like that. So I was like, okay. So we ended up changing our plan. And since we had already camped at Cossatot Falls, we wanted to go try to camp at Ed Banks. And so we're like, all right, that's the plan. So we drive down to Ed Banks, and we get to where it said there's just a sign that says Ed Banks Cut-In, and there's a low water crossing and like nothing else. And so, okay, we drive back, and we go like a couple miles back, and we end up at a dead end yellow gate, like a hunting lease. And I'm just like, what the hell? And so we go and we drive all the way back. It's like a couple miles back down to where it forked off, went another way, go over there, and there's one campsite, and there's a couple Jeeps and some people there eating lunch. And I'm like, damn. And like, you have to drive through the campsite to turn around. So, and obviously all their vehicles are there. So I did like this 10-point turn right next to their freaking campsite to try to get out of there. Cause it's like, tiny little gravel road or dirt road. And so I finally got out of there, and I'm like, damn. And then I see this spot where it's like a perfect spot on the bank. And there's like a small cutoff from the road you take to get there. And this is right next to that low water crossing, that bridge. And there's a porta potty there. And I was like, well, it looks like there's a pull off for the porta potty, but there's no because the other campsite had like this wall kind of thing. And it's like a flat pad with rock, and it has a picnic table and a fire ring and all sorts of stuff. So I was like, that's obviously a campsite. That's how the campsites at Cossatot Falls were. But this didn't have any of that, but it was like a perfect camping, like on the bank of the river. And I was like, that would be amazing. But it specifically says on the website that you cannot camp anywhere except for designated camping sites. And I was like, well, damn. But then I look and I see like a makeshift fire ring. Like there's some rocks there with some logs in it that have burned. And I'm like, well, somebody's camped here, or at least somebody had a fire. I was like, I think I'm going to risk it, because we don't want to stay at the same campsite. And it was $15 for the campsite previously. And so I was like, well, but I don't see a way to pay. And so I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to risk it. But I finally told Ruth, I said, let's just risk it. Like, we'll put up a tent. I'll leave a business card on there. So if we're not supposed to, and the park ranger comes by, like, he can call or text. And maybe if I get signal at some point, I'll get the text saying, hey, you can't camp here. And then we'll go and get the tent. Like, not a problem. And so we set up the tent, and we get hiking. And we're hiking, and I keep seeing these like great shoals and great pools for fishing. And I was just like, and it was like a clear day. I think it got up to 70 that day. The water's cool. The water's moving. I was like, perfect fishing conditions. And I finally talked her into letting me go and fish for a little bit. And so we hiked down this kind of, it's not even a trail, but it looked like it may have been a game trail. And so you can see where some of the grass is kind of parted down. And so we like hiked our way down there, and we get to the water, and I'm just like, just taking in the beauty. It was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it was just and I don't even know what kind of rock is there. It's almost, I sent you some pictures, right? So,
yeah, you did.
So I don't even know what kind of rock that would be, but it just makes these, like, it's just smooth, just curves. Like, I don't know. It's just gorgeous. And so I was standing up, on some boulders that are sticking out of the water, casting into the ripples. And I missed a couple fish, and I saw some, and the water was cold. So I don't know if the fish were lethargic or if I was just stripping too fast, but I had a couple that I had missed, and I could just see brown or like bronze come up right next to my fly and then miss it. And I was like, dude, these have to be friggin' smallmouth. And so I'm casting, and I finally hook up on one, and Ruth had my camera. And so she doesn't like know much about cameras. So she was like trying to record me and take pictures and stuff. And which I'm very thankful for. She actually got some decent footage of me casting, which is pretty cool, because I don't really have much of me doing anything. I'm normally the one behind the camera. So it was nice to kind of get some footage of me doing some stuff. But and I caught this little smallmouth, and it was, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 inches, but it was by far the prettiest smallmouth that I've ever caught. I mean, it was just all marked up, bronze and green. I mean, it was just a gorgeous fish. Caught it on a little, I think it was a bead-headed minnow pattern that I'd tied up, and good release, safe release. Fish went off, and she's like, okay, you caught your fish, like, time to go back hiking. I'm like, no, we've been here like 20 minutes. And so I asked her if she wanted to try to fish, and she's never used a fly rod before. She's used a Tenkara rod before. And so I was trying to like compare the two, trying to help her cast, and she actually got some decent casts. but was unable to catch a fish, unfortunately. And she was pretty much over it not too long into it. And so packed everything up, and then we start hiking back. And so we get all the way to the Cossatot Falls campsite. And I think it's like probably about 3 miles. But halfway, there's a spot called Stan's Bridge. And you walk across this bridge, and there's, a little cascading waterfall beneath it. And then right where it pulls up beneath that, there's a bench. And it says Stan the Man on the bench. And then the bridge itself is Stan's Bridge. So we went and sat there for a little bit. And before we went to Sportsman's Warehouse and got Peak Refuel, like meals. Like, have you seen the dehydrated meals, like Mountain House and stuff?
Yes.
So Peak Refuel is another one. And dude, I'll get to the meal later. It was amazing. But they also had some dehydrated brownie bites. And so we sat there, and she doesn't like chocolate, so I was eating the brownie bites. But dude, those freaking brownie bites, they're like dehydrated candy, but in brownies. And dude, they're freaking good. So I sat there and ate some of those, and we just, relaxed the whole time. And the river's so clear that we have life straw, like sacks where you just fill up the sack, and then you have the life straw on the top. And so we're just, drinking water straight from the river. The river was, pretty cool, pretty like chill. I think it was, I don't even know what the water temperature is, but it felt like I was drinking a glass of ice water. Like, it was just perfect. And so we sat there, drank some water, ate some brownie bites, and continued on. Well, then when we got to Cossatot Falls campsite, that park ranger come by again. And so he's like, "Hey, y'all made it." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And so he asked how the hike was and asked what we did. And I was like, "Quick question." I said, "Ed Banks, there's camping up there, right?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "There's 2 campsites." He said, "There's like an actual campsite, and then there's like another one just kind of on the riverbank, but they're both taken." And I was like, "The riverbank, like by the porta potty?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Sweet, that's us." I said, "I wasn't sure if we can camp there, but I put my tent up just in case." He said, "Yeah, that's campsite." I said, "Well, where do we pay then? Because there's not like anywhere to leave money." He said, "It's a free campsite." It's like, sweet. So we got a free campsite on the riverbank, and we set up the tent on this like soft silt area. So it was like a perfect area to camp. So I'm glad that we ended up getting it. And so we had got there to the falls, and then we went and walked the falls again and went further down than we did that morning, and hiked down there. And I got some good like long exposure pictures of the waterfalls and stuff like that.
I saw those,
Yeah,
dude. Those are the photos you sent me, right?
Yeah.
Dude, they look. That place looks amazing. I want to go so bad.
Dude, we have to. Those pictures don't even do it justice. Like, I tried to capture, and I didn't take my tripod with me, so those pictures were literally taken by me just like setting my camera on a rock and like getting other little rocks to try to like get the angle that I wanted. But I mean, if I could have got the entirety, and I only took one lens, I just had my 50 mil. Like, I didn't. It was bare minimum, no tripod, just one lens. Like, it was a very minimalistic trip. But if I could have taken, like my 16 to 35 and gotten a wider shot, like the trees were just so colorful. There's a lot of greens and oranges. The water's blue. The stone is gray with some streaks of orange in it. Like, dude, it was just absolutely gorgeous. But so we hiked around there, and we left our bear spray there. So I bought bear spray because apparently there's a lot of bears. So we didn't see any, but apparently there's a lot of bears there. And it was also opening weekend for bear. And so I'm thinking, well, with all these hunting leases, like if someone shoots a bear or misses a bear or spooks a bear, like they might be running, into the park, and would have been good for us to have bear spray. So I got bear spray before we went. But when we got down halfway through our hike for the day, and we're climbing on all these rocks, and I just had it clipped to my side, but I'm having to like climb and get down on all these shoals and stuff. So I took it out of my pocket or off my clip and put it on the rock while I climbed down backwards, and then I was going to grab it. And I completely forgot it. And I didn't notice until we're like halfway back to our campsite, going back to Ed Banks, and the sun's starting to get low over the ridge. And I'm like, damn, like this could be bad. Like, we don't have bear spray. I don't have a machete. Like, I have nothing but a little 2.5-inch pocket knife. I was like, that would be crazy. And so I looked at Ruth. I said, when a bear comes, if a bear comes, you don't have to be fast. You just can't be the slowest. And she looked at me. She's like, "You would let a bear attack me?" I was like, "I would probably trip you and just let it." She's like, "Are you?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I would absolutely fight a bear off for you." She's like, "I don't know. Would you?" I said, "Yes, I would. What's wrong with you?" But we started hiking back, and we got back a little bit before the sun went down, so it was fine. And I was like, well, there's a little shoal right next to where the campsite was. So I was like, well, let me try to get a little bit of fishing in there. So I got maybe, I don't know, 5 casts in. But I want to get a fire going before, and I want to get meals going and all that before it was too dark. So I was like, all right, got a little bit of fishing in, caught that one fish. So it wasn't a total loss, although I wanted to fish a lot more. But it just means I need to make another trip back. Like it's a perfect fishing spot. So, yeah, next time you come up, we're going there. It's an hour and a half away from where I live. So like I was expecting it to be like 3 hours away just by what it looked like. Doesn't look like anything in this area, but it is hour and a half away, close enough for a day trip if we needed to, but I'd rather take a weekend and just fish the hell out of it. But yeah, dude, it was awesome. And then, so we got back to the campsite, and this is where those peak meals come in. So I got it was a bison ranch mashers meal is what it's called. And so it's bison meat, ranch flavored mashed potatoes, carrots, peas, and I think that's about it. There might be another vegetable or something in it. And it's just a basic, camping meal where you boil some water, put it in there, zip it up, let it sit for a few minutes, and that's it. And I didn't have extremely high hopes for it. I mean, I expected it to be edible, obviously. But when I started eating it, dude, it was like a freaking gourmet meal. Like, that shit was good. It was better than, a lot of meals that I've had in the past 6 months. And it's an $11 dehydrated meal. Like, freaking amazing, dude.
And we are not sponsored by Peak Fuel Meals.
We are.
But, if you want to.
Right. But, yeah, dude, they are, oh, my God, freaking amazing. And then for breakfast, the one I got was peaches, heavy cream, and steel rolled oats. And it was phenomenal. Ruth got strawberry granola, I think it was, and it was really good. Those brownie bites are amazing. Like, I'm excited to go camping just for the meals now. Like, that's what I'm going to buy every time because, dude, they're so freaking good and they're so easy to make. So, yeah, it was amazing.
Dude, all in all, it sounds like a pretty sweet trip, man. I'm looking forward to trying going out there myself.
We need
especially for some small jaws, dude.
Hell yeah, dude. It's loaded. Like, I saw quite a few of them. So
how deep are those pools? Do you think you need some sinking line to like more effectively fish those areas?
They looked pretty deep. So sink tip would be fine. I think the only issue, like if you're trying to go minimalistic, I would probably do like an intermediate line, a slow sink. That way, in case you need to throw top water, because I was throwing a floating line and I was using, subsurface streamers. So I think that if you're only taking one pole, I would say either a float or an intermediate. And if you have to extend your leader just to get down a little deeper, you might have to do that or use a heavier fly.
I guess it would also depend on how fast the flows are.
Yeah, and the flows they weren't extremely fast, but they were moving when I was there. But I was getting fine with floating line. If you could have 2 rods, absolutely have a sink and a float, because you could definitely fish down in some of those holes. But I can see a lot of times where you would want to use top water as well. So it really depends on what your preference, what flies you're preferring to throw. I mean, I know you and I, we both like throwing streamers, so a sink line would be fine. But apparently there's some good mouse fishing out there too, like mousing, and I wanted to do that as well, because we saw, I think, probably 5 or 6 chipmunks, saw a few mice running around. Like, there's a bunch of rodent activity out there. So I'm pretty sure that, on a full moon night, you could probably, or even like not a full moon, but if there's a bright enough moon and a clear sky, like, you probably have some really good mouse fishing at night.
Dude, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to do it, but so I told Ruth, I said, okay. I said, if the water quality, air quality is good, like our last night there, Saturday night, I said, if it's good, I'm gonna get up in the middle of the night and go fishing. She says, that's fine. And so all I took for this trip in terms of clothing was a pair of like thin ripstop pants, a long sleeve hooded bamboo UPF fishing shirt, and a short sleeve t-shirt, and 2 pairs of boxers, 2 pairs of socks. So very minimalistic. Ruth, on the other hand, had a couple pairs of leggings, a couple pairs of pants, a sweater, a hoodie. Actually, no, I lie. I brought a flannel too, but she confiscated the flannel. A t-shirt,
Funny how that happens,
right? And so she had, and she was able to compact her clothing into 1 gallon size Ziploc, and then I think another little roll of maybe a hoodie and a sweater together. So I mean, she didn't bring much at all, but she brought much more than I did. And so we get done, and so we made a fire the second night, right? And it just wasn't the wood that we bought some wood at the nature center. I said, screw this, like that wood out there's too wet. And so we bought some wood at the nature center. And when I first lit it, it was putting out some flames, putting out some heat. But excuse me, I think it was just, maybe it was a type of wood, I don't know. But it was perfect for like barbecuing wood. Like it immediately went to coal and was putting out a lot of heat close, but there weren't rising flames. And so I kept fanning it and trying to get flames to come. And then I was fanning it more, flames would come, they'd go away. Fan it more, flames would come, and then it'd go away. And it kept wanting to turn into coals, which would have been great for cooking on, but it wasn't really putting much heat out for us. So we were already getting cold as it was. So then it started getting a little bit more chilly that night. And so we're like, let's just, go to the tent and lay down and get ready for bed. So we lay down and our mattresses go flat. I had to air them up like 3 times throughout the night. And I woke up and I just had to pee so bad. And I was like, all right, well, cool. I'm going to go pee. And so I get out of the tent and I go around the corner and I pee. And I come back and I look at the time and it's like 4:30. I look up and it's just stars galore, a big moon. And I'm like, clear skies. It's like, sweet. Like this would be awesome to try to throw that damn mouse out there. Cause I brought a mouse fly. I brought a little container with, I think I had maybe 8 flies and that's all I had. And then my 1 5-weight fly rod. And that Pro 3 that I have, finally caught my first fish on it. So I did take the plastic off the cork. But I was like, I think I'm going to go fishing. And then after about 5 seconds, I'm like, yeah, it's too damn cold for this. I'm not prepared. I think it was 40 something degrees and I'm out there and all I have is, a short sleeve t-shirt and these ripstop pants. And I'm like, yeah, I'm shivering as it is right now. And I was like, I don't have a jacket. Ruth had on a hoodie, a sweatshirt, my flannel, a long sleeve and a short sleeve, and was in her sleeping bag. So I wasn't going to wake her up to take my flannel or anything. I said, I'll just lay back down and go back to sleep. So I didn't fish that night, but it was it got down pretty chilly. I think I need to come a little more prepared, maybe some wool socks or, maybe some undergarments or something for keeping me warm. But nonetheless, it was still pretty good time. I need to go back and fish it.
Let's go, man. It gives me an excuse to get some stuff to tie mouse flies. I've been really, so I haven't myself been able to go out and do any outdoorsy stuff to an extent. I mean, I guess my field work is outdoorsy, but it's not, although we try to make it fun, it's not in and of itself fun. Like it's not something I would go out of my way to go do. It's something I have to do. But, so I haven't, and that's been taking up most of my time, and I've been having some personal stuff on the weekends I've been having to deal with. So it's just really haven't had a lot of time to go fishing or hunting. Unfortunately, this past Saturday, November 4th, if I'm not mistaken, was the general season opener for Texas. So if any of you Texas hunters were out in the field, I hope you guys were successful. And if not, well, I hope you get the deer you're looking for in the upcoming weeks, because there's still quite a bit of season left. But anyways, so I've just been tying a lot. I hadn't tied for months just because of my living situation at that time. Now I have my tying set up, and so I've been trying to do at least a few flies a week. Just whatever I kind of, I don't really. It just kind of depends on my mood. Like sometimes I'll tie like little, like big streamers. Sometimes I'll tie small stuff. It just, kind of depends. Here lately, I've been doing a lot of stuff with deer hair. And so I was actually watching, I forgot what video it was. They were mousing for big browns. And I was like, dude, that'd be awesome. We don't really have browns in Texas unless they stock them in the quad. But, so needless to say, I've never, had a reason to tie a mouse fly. Yeah. But, I've just been wanting to. They just look cool, and I like the challenge. And deer hair, at least for me, has been one of the most intimidating types of fly or materials to tie with. But it's also been some of the most rewarding. Like I really enjoy it, but it's really, at least for me, it's been very hard to get like a nice looking finished product, just because there are certain techniques that are required, I think, to tie like a good deer hair fly that I've not yet mastered. But needless to say, dude, I would love to go over there, fish for some small jaws, hopefully with some hand tied flies, because it's just funner catching fish on flies you tie, especially like deer hair stuff, man. It's a blast. It's pretty cool. But it's crazy. Like I started tying some deer hair like divers and stuff last spring. Dude, for one fly, it takes me like almost 2 hours of tying. Maybe. Just because like the actual tying, the packing, and then the trimming. The trimming takes forever because once you cut some hair, you can't exactly glue it back on. So it's really important to take your time. And I've made some really, oh crap, I dropped my little microphone cover. I've made some really terrible looking flies, and I've made some pretty all right looking flies, but there are some dudes, they're just deer hair masters. I mean, it's like their flies are like functional art. It's freaking crazy what some of these guys can do. I'll never get there, but
I don't know, bro. You haven't been doing it for that long, and you've tied up some freaking sick looking divers.
Dude, I don't know, man, but I will hope to get better. I mean, we should all strive to get better in the things we pursue, but so hopefully I'll get better. But anyways, yeah, man. So let's do it. Let's plan a trip. I'm planning on taking a little bit of a vacation. Hopefully, if I can, I've got to run that by my advisor once I finish field work. Yeah. But I got to finish field work first, which is
I think you should make a trip up here. We got numerous places we can go. We have some other podcast guests that are going to be on that we've talked to, and he's offered us to go up to his neck of the woods. So I think you should definitely make a trip up here, bro.
Dude, I want to. I just got to get through the season first, man. I'm already fighting against the clock.
So when you foreseeing the field season's gonna start closing up?
Well, so let me just preface this, I guess, so people who may not have listened in before who are just tuning in will be like totally lost. So right now I'm a grad student, and for the last year was my first field season. This is my second. So my field season, essentially, I kind of have like two parts. I have like a summer portion. Actually, it should all be one continuous thing, but inevitably mine extends into the fall, sometimes winter, just depending on how things go. But there are like two, I guess, components to my field work. One is the deployment of ARUs or audio recording units. So we set those out. I'll go and check them every now and again, and then we pull those at a certain time. And then the second part is vegetation sampling, to be more specific. I have 23 sites to sample, and we do two different methods. And so that's what we're doing right now. And ideally, we'll do those during seasons of like primary growth. And that typically will start around August, September. And when things start getting cold and we start getting like cold fronts and we start getting freezes, things will begin dying or senescing. And so it just becomes very difficult to ID things. So being able to have good quality data really depends on being able to make accurate identifications when it comes to your plants. So that's one reason why I'm fighting against the clock, because once these things start like senescing and stuff like that or dying, it just becomes like insanely difficult. So I got to finish. So I need ideally to finish sooner rather than later, so I can have like more, or be more, I guess, to be more confident in what I'm IDing or my IDing skills. So that's one reason, but that's the main reason. So there's that. And then also within this, we'll do some UAV flights over my sites and stuff like that. And I'll process that, in the office, which isn't terrible. And I'll process the ARU stuff in the office as well. But, so needless to say, in an ideal scenario, because last year it took us quite a bit of time, because we had to set up the plots. And then after setting up the plots, we had to sample them. And we kind of established semi-permanent plots. And so it took us a lot of time to do that and to sample and everything. This year, because the plots are already there, we just have to run the tapes. That's kind of how we establish our sampling locations, is we run these like 60-meter long tapes in each cardinal direction, northeast, southwest, and all that. So setting up of the plot takes a little bit of time still, about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how thick the brush is. But we want to try and get it as straight as possible. And so it takes us a little bit of time to do that, but it's going faster than last year. And also, I feel like our IDing took longer last year. One, because you got later start, and two, I've been very, very rusty when it comes to my ID. So my plant ID, I've been a little bit better here, so things have been moving a little bit faster, a little bit smoother. So we've been able to average 2 plots a day when we've been able to sample. The problem with this year is we've been battling weather. We can't really sample when there's like just a bunch of rain, especially when there's lightning. So we've been fighting weather. We've been in the same time we've been having to do flight missions. So that takes up like an entire day every time we do a flight mission. And so there was like a week or two ago when we were doing flight missions, we would go out there and we would try and do it, get these big tarps set up and stuff with the spectrometer and everything, and for post-processing of the imagery. And we'd get them set up, and then they'd be like, oh, we're having technical difficulties. We can't fly. Or whatever the case was. So I lost an entire week of potential sampling time because we were dealing with flight missions. So I couldn't sample at all at that time. And we got like 2 of the 3 sites that we needed to get actually done. So last week, things were going good, had some family stuff come up, and I just had to go home to do that. And so I left early before I can get more sampling done than I wanted. And then this week we're having to deal with flight missions again. Today, that's what we're supposed to do. Again, they're having technical difficulties, so we couldn't fly. So I lost a day of sampling today. So tomorrow, hopefully, if all goes well, I'll be able to get 2 to 3 plots done.
Nice.
And then Thursday, there's a chance of rain. That's we're having a cold front come through. So depending on when that happens, it'll determine how much I can get done. I'm hoping to get 2 done before that, but we'll see. And then Friday, my friend and colleague who's been helping me has some stuff to go do. And I actually have to go back home because I actually got some stuff I need to do, help out with my family, sorry. And so we have to head back Friday. And then we're trying to get everything done before Thanksgiving just because that's just a personal goal of mine. I just want to get things done before Thanksgiving. I don't want to worry about this anymore. Right. I want to go back to having a life and kind of, sort of, and or at least a more manageable life, I guess.
Yeah.
So, this field season has been good to an extent, but it's just been challenging. And so, and that's just how it goes in ecology, man. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just, you have a bunch of stuff you can't control. You're fighting against the weather, you're fighting against time and all that stuff. So you can only do what you can do. And that's just kind of how it is for me. And then when it comes to the writing portion, if you're thinking about going to grad school, just something to consider when it comes to like writing and making sense of everything, you're going to have to try and justify everything that you've done. So you're going to have to make sense and justify why, it took so long to sample and why, and how that might influence how your data looks and how your final results look and all that stuff. So it's but that's a problem for future me. I'll figure that out. And hopefully. And because we've had some other instances in our lab where that's been the case. And because we work on a ranch where there are people there and, gates get left open and whatever, there's some other intangible things that may influence the data as well. And then we have to make sense of that. We have to articulate that. We have to justify and explain that to the viewers and, all that stuff. So it'll be an interesting process. It'll be an interesting conundrum that I'll be facing once I get to that point. I'm not there yet. I still got to process and analyze all my data. But yeah, so just a little insight to my grad school life, what I've been dealing with. Not nearly as exciting as what Russell's been doing. Just So needless to say, and it does kind of suck, man, because I have friends who are like going fishing, who are going hunting, and they'll invite me like, hey, man, you going to be in town? Let's go fish and all this stuff. I'm like, nah, dude. I'm going to be in the field. Yeah, I'm in the field Monday through Friday. And I do try to go like during the summer. We do tend to like whenever we do tend to have a little bit more downtime when we set out these ARUs and when we go and check them, we can be a bit more flexible with that. And so my field site is not too far from the South Atlanta River, so I will bring a rod and go fishing when I can. And I've done that in this past summer. And it was great. It was fun. But this season, I just have zero time for that. And also the land, we got a bunch of rain up here like a week or two ago, and the land was blown out. So I couldn't fish at all that weekend. I don't know what it's looking like this week. Actually, the flows look pretty good this week. I just don't know how that'll affect the fishing. But I am, man. So just been battling that. So I'm hoping once I get this, knocked out, I'm going to try and talk to my advisor, see if I can take some time off, because I feel like I need it. I'm freaking burnt out, and hopefully be able to go and do some fishing, maybe do some hunting. My girlfriend's family, she actually told me last time that her uncle and cousin asked her if I'd be interested in going hunting at some point. It's because she has some family members that like to go and do that. So I was like, yeah, I'd totally be down to do that. So hopefully I'll be able to sneak in a hunting trip this year. We'll see.
I hope you can, man. I hope I can. Shit.
Dude, I know. I've been, so and the other thing, so like I guess to get a little bit more personal, my grandfather hasn't been doing too well, as of late. And he is the one that is responsible for like getting me involved in the outdoors. And so I wouldn't be part of this podcast. I probably wouldn't even be doing what I'm doing today as far as like my career aspirations and like my time here as a grad student if it weren't for him and my grandmother. So a lot of it is totally because of him. And so he loves hunting. He doesn't do it as often. Well, he doesn't do it anymore at all. He hasn't been in years. And he loves deer sausage. So like breakfast sausage, like there's a little meat market, Bonton, back home. And he loves their summer sausage. He loves their deer sausage stuff. And usually like I want to get to the point where like if I'm ever in a position where I like hunt more regularly, like I want to be able to get to the point where I can process my own stuff. Mm-hmm. But for the time being, I usually take my deer, at least in the past, I've taken my deer there to get a process and we get breakfast sausage, pan sausage, and all that stuff made. And it's freaking phenomenal. And he loves that stuff. And so he hasn't been wanting to eat much lately. So I'm hoping if I can get a deer and get the sausage and stuff, he'll be, he'll actually try and eat it because I know he loves that stuff. Yeah. So that's another reason why I want to try and hit the field this year if I have the opportunity to do so. Just that way he can hopefully eat a little bit more, since I know that's something he does enjoy. But yeah, man. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just hanging in there, surviving to live and fight another day. And hopefully we'll get this shit knocked out so I can go up to Arkansas and fish for some trout and small jaws, man.
Yes, sir. We need to go camping. Up here, man.
I haven't been camping since you and I floated the Buffalo a year ago.
Damn. Dude, I freaking love camping. I think I want to start going. See, I'm one of those weirdos that like it when it's cold. So I would much rather camp now than I would have, last month or the month before. Because, I mean, it's just, when you're cold, you can always put more stuff on. But when it's hot, you can only take so much off.
See, here in Texas, I think I'd rather camp when it's cold than in the hot. Because when it's just blazing hot, dude, I can't sleep. It's just too uncomfortable. I can't sleep. So
I sleep so much better when it's cold.
Yeah, because just for the reasons you stated. I mean, you can always bundle up, man.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend's not much of an outdoorsy person. It's kind of funny because we're so different in that regard. She says she'd be open to it, but I don't know how true that is. I would hate to plan a trip and have all this stuff and for her to be like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. And then we have to drive all the way back. So
kind of like I did with my youngest.
Oh my God, I felt so bad, dude.
I felt
That
bad for
was,
y'all. Her waking y'all up at like 2:30 in the morning screaming.
dude. I mean, that part don't bother me. I just felt bad because she just like she wasn't stopping. I was kind of scared for her, man. I was like, oh my God, I hope she's okay. And then I heard y'all tear off in the middle of the night, and I thought maybe y'all had gone to like take a little cruise and maybe get her settled down and all that stuff. But when we woke up, like y'all were just like everything was gone, tent,
Yeah.
everything. I was like, oh, okay, so they're gone.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that
And
was
she
that
was
was
she was like 9 months
interesting.
old, and she just was not having it. She wanted to be in her bed because she started sleeping in her own crib at 3 months, and she was just accustomed to it. And occasionally she would sleep in the bed, but she loved her crib. And if she wasn't in her crib, she was having to lay with us. She was not having it. She had a blast playing in the water there earlier in that day. Because she
She
was
did.
but she wouldn't take a nap that day, and then we couldn't get her to sleep, and she was screaming at 2 a.m. I was like, I'm not gonna have other people's trip messed up, so we just decided it'd be best to pack everything up and get on out. And it was like, what? How far is that? Like 3 hours from San Marcos?
No, that was
2
maybe
hours?
two,
Yeah,
somewhere around there. Hour 45, 2 hours.
yeah. So we got back, and yeah, it wasn't fun, but yeah, she I doubt that Sarah would have that same experience that Adeline was. I don't think she'd wake up screaming at 2 a.m.
I know, man. I hate to keep her so far away from her crib. I'm just kidding.
Maybe I
Oh.
could talk Ruth into coming down, and we could both take our girlfriends out camping. Maybe that would alleviate some of it for her having another woman there.
Honestly, I think that would help. Um, so she and I are both very stubborn, and I have a feeling that she would not take instruction from me very,
Mhm.
very well.
That's kind of how I felt trying to teach Ruth to cast this weekend. It's like, I don't want to tell her what to do because I know that she's not going to be as reciprocating, coming from me. But I'm just like, there's nobody else here. We literally we didn't see one person on 3 days of hiking on the trails. Like, there's nobody there. And I was trying to teach her to cast, and she just wasn't. Maybe it's just not her thing, but I don't think she just wanted to hear it from me.
Dude, so my buddy was trying to get his girlfriend at the time into fly fishing. Like they had gone a couple times. He tried to teach her how to cast, but she was like, I want to learn how to do it my way and this and that. Like she was not very receptive to him at all.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. I can get that sentiment because I'm like that to an extent as well. But at the same time, like if you have somebody there who's I guess more knowledgeable about a certain thing and the thing that you're doing, it'd probably be good to at least take some of the advice or whatever, be more open to what they're saying. But from what I understand, she was not. And so we went to this fly shop in Houston, and he was telling the guy that we were talking to who worked there, the situation. He goes, yeah, dude. He goes, just bring her here. We'll teach her. He goes, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you and I tell her the same thing. Oftentimes it's not about what is said. It's about who says it. Like who's it's coming from. He goes, I've got so many people like that. Like husbands will bring their wives in here because they don't want to listen to them. But as long as they're listening to an instructor, someone who's essentially not their husband or partner or whatever, like they're way more receptive. They just pick it up way faster. It's super funny how that works out. But yeah, that's another reason, I guess, why if my girlfriend is ever like really wanting to go into try fly fishing, I'd rather try and take her to a fly shop to get some instruction than me do it. Cause I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I did teach her a little bit, and she did actually like not totally ignore me. So maybe we're on to something there. I just need to spend a little bit more time with her, but I feel like she'd probably get pretty tired of me pretty fast.
Right.
And then that's when I'll take her to the fly shop.
So you don't want to overdo it.
Yeah, exactly. So because I would like to take her, and she's like, how come you never take me fishing? And here's my thing. It's not that I'm against it, because I definitely want to. I think it'd be fun to be able to do that together. But The reason I have never done it as of yet is because I don't want to be the one to initiate that, if that makes any sense. I feel like if I was like, hey, let's go fishing, or hey, we're going to go fishing, it wouldn't be out of her own like wanting to do that.
Yeah.
It'd be me doing it. But if she goes, hey, I would really like for you to take me fishing, then at least I know that she's more open-minded about having that experience because it's coming from her rather than me making, that suggestion. So that's what I've been waiting for. And she has finally done that. And the weather's been, and she's more of a fair weather outdoorsman.
Mm-hmm.
So, or outdoors person, sorry. And, so she doesn't want to go when it's like too hot or too cold. So
Too wet, too dry.
So I have like maybe 10 days out of the year to make that happen. And at least here in Texas. And so unfortunately we've had some really beautiful weather here lately, but I've been in the field, so I can't make that happen. Yeah. So I'm hoping if I miss my window this fall, then in the spring we'll be able to find some time and do that. But
that would be awesome.
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. And then we can have her, because, so there's a thing that I guess we can mention it's not giving it too much away, but there's a thing, a listener actually suggested where we can, since we're both very passionate about the outdoors, we can take someone who maybe has not done a certain thing. And I guess specifically for us, since we fly fish mostly rather than hunting or anything, mm-hmm. where we take them, we show them like how to cast, we take them fishing, show them all that stuff. And then we have them on and kind of go over their experience. For sure. And so I think you're going to try and plan to do that with your girlfriend.
Yep.
And then I was going to try and do that with my girlfriend. And then and the listener actually lives close to College Station. So, and they happen to not have ever fly fished before. So I think I'm going to try and show them how to do that and have them come on at some point too.
That would be awesome.
So
we definitely need to try to do that. I was hoping I can get a little bit more fishing in this weekend with Ruth, but I at least wanted to get her on a fish, but it didn't happen. Wasn't in the cards.
Cause she's caught fish before, right? But on Tenkara.
Yeah, she tore them up on the Tenkara when we went. She caught all sorts of different shiners and long ears, red breast, green sunfish, bluegills. Like she caught all sorts of smaller fish.
Did she have? Did she at least have fun with that?
She did. She says that she had fun, and she says the reason why she had so much fun is because we weren't out there for more than an hour.
That's fair. So small doses.
Yeah, small doses are definitely her thing.
I think that's how I'm gonna have to go about my girlfriend too. And I've told you this. So like I've talked. I may have mentioned this on the previous episode too. So I have talked with people who currently fish or who have attempted to take their partners fishing and their experiences. And so through those conversations, I've been able to kind of devise a plan of attack, I think, with Sarah. So since I know that she gets hangry, I'm going to have snacks. I'm going to make sure there's a ton of water. And then one thing I learned from a friend of mine was he feels like he burnt out or got his girlfriend burnt out on the sport because when he's super into it, right? Mm-hmm. So he took her on this really long excursion of fishing, mm-hmm. and she was kind of over it after the first few hours. And he didn't bring any food, he didn't bring any water, and so he kind of planned, at least from my understanding, it seems like he planned the trip as if it was just him or him and a buddy who is equally as into it. But she obviously was not. She had different expectations and stuff. And so since she had like a negative experience, she kind of turned it away from it. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like if I potentially want to continue doing this with my girlfriend, I want her to have the best experience as possible. So just, so I'm going to make sure she's comfortable, bring food, water, all that stuff, make sure weather's good. And then I think, and I'm not going to bring my rod. Like I want to focus the experience solely on her. So she has my undivided attention, make sure, she's having a good time and all that stuff. And then if she does, and she's more receptive of it, and then we can actually do a fishing trip together. But I just want to make sure that her first time is good to go. And then I think what I'm going to also try and do is make it less about the fishing and more about spending time together. So maybe bring like a picnic blanket or whatever. We can just like make a picnic or something out of it, you know, make it like a fun and enjoyable experience, trying to put her own interest into it as well. And so, maybe then she will be more like open to the idea, but
that would be awesome.
At least that's my plan. Kind of make it, I guess, like a date night thing.
Yeah.
And if anybody decides to do this with their partner, let me know how it goes. So I can readjust if I need to, if I miss something. But yeah, that's how I think I'm gonna approach it. So hopefully I don't scare her off or anything.
That sounds like a good plan. That's kind of what I did with Ruth. Is we, went off and had a little picnic area. Actually, body of water that me and you fished one time when you were up here, and I knew there was this little pool that had a bunch of fish in it, and I knew that it wasn't gonna be too crowded for her. Trying to learn how to use a tenkara rod and with a back casket and caught and stuff. So I knew it was fairly open. I knew there was fish. I knew there was a not a dangerous body of water. It was, a calm pool. There was an area to have a picnic on the side. And so just kind of eased her into it with things that I know that she already likes and things that I think that she might not like. I kind of stayed away from. So obviously didn't want to take her to moving water or on the kayak, trying to fish from the kayak, stuff like that. I kind of tried to tailor it more towards her, and she enjoyed it. And I think this weekend, I don't think that she necessarily enjoyed it, mainly because she knew we had a long hike ahead of us and she just wanted to get to the hike. So she was pretty much over it almost immediately. And so I hope I didn't overdo it a little bit much because we were there for 20, 30 minutes. So I hope it wasn't too much for her at that time because she was just ready to go. But yeah, we need to, we should both do it with our girlfriends and do a podcast on it for sure.
And maybe them too. Like if I go up there to Arkansas and Sarah happens to come with me, perhaps her being there and the two girls being there together, maybe they'll open up to the idea of fishing once like they see another girl there, someone that they, I guess a fellow, I don't know how to explain it, man, but just familiar, I guess, if that makes any sense.
I would say so.
It just make them more comfortable seeing another girl do the thing that they're doing so they can do it together.
Right.
Type of thing.
And they probably have a lot more commonalities and things that they could talk about on, even if they're bonding on over why they don't like it,
Yeah,
it'll make it a little bit more enjoyable for them. Yeah.
Exactly. So we'll see, man. Maybe that's something we can do too.
We should, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, it's been over an hour?
An hour.
We said it was going to be a short episode.
Dude, that happens every time.
Every single time. So, but I guess we'll go ahead and get ready to start closing her out. You got anything else you want to cover?
There's nothing off the top of my head that I can think of.
All right. Before we close it out, for those of y'all that are watching on video, I have some cups made, and so these are some mugs with our logo on them that will hopefully be on our website by the time this comes out. Still working through some of the kinks with that, but this is the sample one, and if you like it, here it is. Go get yourself one. We'll also be having hats, shirts, koozies, regular coffee mugs, all sorts of stuff like that coming on the website soon. So check us out at mywildlifeoutdoors.com, and thank y'all for listening. We'll catch y'all next time.
This has been Wildlife Outdoors. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook at Wildlife Outdoors and on Instagram at wild.life.outdoors. Let's go live life on the wild side.